Hello BookTube, this is Weekly Reads. I've been continuing with my Bell Redemption December reading project. For those of you who don't know, bailing is not finishing a book. I am a heavy bailer. So far this year, I have bailed on about 85 books. It's atrocious, and I will talk about the only thing that saved this reading year later on in this video. But unlike some readers who bail and forget, I often revisit those books I bail on. I often give second and third and perhaps four or more chances because I'm fully aware that circumstances can change. And I hope that a second or more, looks might improve a book, that I might finish it, what I call a Bell redemption, if not necessarily loving the book, which has happened. That I've bailed on a number of books, and when I've come back to them months or years later, my opinions have changed. But more often than not, it's a Bell redemption rejection, which is I continue to bail on the book until I really should just get around to getting rid of the book. So anyway, I've been continuing my Bell Redemption December project, which is basically picking a number of books that I've bailed on, and then I would like to give second or however many extra chances I've given them. So far I was as of last week, I was 1 and 2 for Bell redemptions to rejections. This month, or this week, the number is 1 to 5 redemptions to rejections. Anyway, so let's get going. So while the Bell redemptions might not necessarily have been working as much as I would have liked, the other things I have read this week were much better for the most part. Sorry about that. So I started the reading week, and I'll start with the Bell redemption books before moving on to the other things. So the book I started on this week, and Bell redemption I started on this week, was The Fifth Season by N.K. Jemisin. This is book 1 in the Broken Earth trilogy. It's about, so it's set in this world where every few generations there's a cataclysmic geologic and volcanic event that leads to a climatic event that lasts for years, decades. And the people of this world call these events fifth seasons. The people of this world have evolved to be able to sense tectonic activity or seismic activity, and some very few are able to manipulate it, as well as other forces. These people are called orogenes. They are horribly oppressed in this world, and at the beginning of the fifth season, one of them, and a particularly powerful one, initiates a fifth season, a big one that will not last for years or decades, but for millennia. All of this serves as the backdrop for a woman coming home from work and discovering that her husband has brutally murdered their son and has done something to their daughter. The woman and her children are orogenes themselves, and the woman goes in pursuit of her husband. I first read this book, or bailed on it, in the summer of 2017 when my mom was in the hospital. I really did not like the introduction, and I did bail on the fifth season again. This time I made it some way through about 50 pages, and I don't think N.K. Jemisin's style really works for me. Um, it just there's a bit of a condescension there, I think, that I find off-putting. And I don't know if it's necessarily because she uses you for a good chunk of the book. Um, one of the one of the sections is um, told in second person, and that in second person can sometimes come off as being condescending. Um, I mean, in other stylistic forms and tones can kind of give off that condescension as well. But I've never really gotten on with N.K. Jemisin's style. I've dipped into a number of her novels, particularly the first books in her series, and I've just always struggled with them. The only exception is The City We Became. And that one, I think I liked it. I definitely did not love it. It was okay. And I think I rated it higher than I probably should have at the time because it was the only N.K. Jemisin one that I fully finished. And yeah, so I think as much as it annoys me to say this, because N.K. Jemisin is one of the major science fiction writers of the 21st century and fantasy, um, her work really just does not connect with me. And so I probably will at some point send what I have by her off to um, trade in for or something. So anyway, so yeah, that was disappointing. I also bailed Rejected, um, The Five Wounds by Kirstin Valdez Quade. Um, this is an expansion of an earlier short story called The Five Wounds, and both the short story and the novel is about a man named Mario who is basically a lazy bum. He seems to not have a job. He seems to just be a parasite on his mother. And I guess to try to make something of him, even though it's in a way far too late. His grand uncle Tive um, uh, basically gets him to join a local religious fraternity, which let me see if I can find the name of it because I'm constantly forgetting what the name of it is. So let me see here. It's not on here, so let me look it up real quick. And so part of what this religious fraternity does is every year for Easter, they reenact the crucifixion, and Amadio is selected to portray Jesus, to be crucified. And he decides that he will, and part of the ritual is accepting whether or not the individual being crucified wants to be nailed to the cross, and he does. Complicating matters is the arrival of Amadio's 15-year-old daughter, who is 8 months pregnant. She's come to live with him after a fight with her mother. And making things even more complicated, Amadio's mother has gone to Las Vegas for vacation, which is kind of weird given that her son is going to be performing this ritual. So one would think she would want to be there to support him. But anyway, let me see here. Okay, so the group's called Los Hermanos Penitentes. So when I first read this book earlier this year, I made it a ways in. I think about 100, little more than 100 pages in. This time, sorry, I didn't quite make it that far. I mean, I bailed earlier than that. And I think that was because while in my first reading, some things bugged me about the novel, but what eventually drove me off was just how detestable Amadio and Angel, his daughter, are. But in this sort of the second go, for one thing, I don't think the short story bore expansion well. I think what might have worked for the short story expanded to a novel doesn't really work because there's more time to go, well, wait a minute. For one thing, what on earth is Tiotive thinking, letting his parasitic grandnephew join this organization when he's got to know not to trust anything he says? It's like, I don't buy that Amadio, why he's joining this. I mean, just the setup just doesn't sound right. And this Bell redemption attempt just really drove that home and really just no. So I bailed on it again, which is again rather disappointing. So the third Bell redemption rejection of this week, I decided instead of having a go at any of the other books I've mentioned in some of my prep videos for Bell Redemption December, I decided to read a short work that I hoped to get to, because it's kind of staring at me how my bed is. But anyway, so I decided to have another go at Dog by Susan McHugh. This is part of the Reaction Animal series of books where various animals are looked at in a very short overview. Some of the books have a mix of biology, history, cultural criticism, economics, and some of them are more targeted. Dog is one of those more targeted books. It is, for all intents and purposes, a work of literary theory or literary cultural criticism, focusing on the dog as the subject. And I did not think I could hate any one of these books more than I do Spider. I was wrong. I was very wrong. I hate this book so much. I made it a little bit further in this time than I did last time. I actually read the entire first chapter and part of the second, but this is just so bad. It's basically needlessly trying to complicate the meaning of dog and species and breed, and it's terrible, just absolutely terrible. And the frustrating thing is that I wanted to start back up with the Reaction Animal series, and yeah. So I think what I might do is I might just read them, but instead of collecting them, once I'm finished with them, I might just pass them on. And the next time you see this one, it will be in a haul video. No ifs, ands, or buts. Because I hated that book. Anyway. So, did I have anything positive from this week? Yes, I did. So on Sunday, I decided to read some poetry. This month, so in late November and early December, LSU, Louisiana State University's press, does about a 2-week or slightly more than 2-week sale off of their website. So I picked up 4 works of poetry, which I will haul at the end of January, but I'm going to go ahead and spoil that part of the haul here. So I picked up The Memory of Gills by Catherine W. Carter. This is her debut collection of poetry. I have her 2 later collections, and I really enjoyed this one. This one was phenomenal, especially the poem Stingray. That was really good. I also picked up Dear Vulcan by Laura Davenport. This one here was also a very strong collection. Another one was Claude Before Time and Space by Claudia Emerson. I liked the first part of the collection more than I did the second part. I thought the second part didn't quite come together all that well. And I bailed on More Than This by David Kirby. I didn't quite like what I read, but I will probably have another go at this at some point in the future. On Tuesday, I read some manga, and like I mentioned earlier this week, the manga really saved my reading week so much. Anyway, so I read the first volume of One Punch Man by One and Yusuke Murata. One Punch Man is a superhero-inspired manga series, like American superheroes. The series is about a man named Saitama who decides he wants to be a superhero. And over a number of years, he trains his body to be able to become so overpowered that he can defeat any opponent with just one punch. But this overpowering of himself has led him to not only be bald, but also to desire conflict. That he, rather than being a hero because it's the right thing or for some psychological issue, he's a hero because he's looking for a good fight. Someone to challenge himself. Someone that he can last with him longer than just one punch. I read this volume and I loved it. It's just the right mix of drama and humor. And I like the world building. I like the art. It's really quite interesting, particularly the contrast between the main character, Saitama, and other characters. Let me see if I can show you a picture of that. So here's a good one. Right here, just like Saitama's look versus the other here. Just it's kind of like I really like that kind of that juxtaposition. And I like how the story progresses, the introductions of some of the characters. Just I had a blast. I love this. I want more One Punch Man. And I also read volume 1 of Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba by Koyoharu Gotouge. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Demon Slayer is set in the Taisho era, the early 20th century, and it's about a young boy named Kenjiro who goes off to, or young man who goes off to sell coal or charcoal to a neighboring village. When he returns, he discovers that his entire family, save his sister, have been slaughtered by demons, and that his sister has herself become a demon. The two fight. Tanjiro holds her off until a demon slayer comes to finish her off. Tanjiro argues that his sister um, won't kill anyone, and his convictions, his willingness to fight for his sister, convinces the Demon Slayer to recommend him for training. So Tanjiro and his sister Nezuko, I think her name's Nezuko, go to where one of the trainers lives, and he undergoes a few years worth of training before he's allowed to go to the pretty much the trials to decide whether or not he will become a Demon Slayer. And the volume ends with that trial, and I love this so much. I love Tanjiro's character. I love the art. It's really great. Let me see if I can find an awesome picture of it, or just really any sort of representative image. So just like it. So yeah, I really had a blast with this, and I want more Demon Slayer. So I think definitely 2023 will see a lot more manga being collected. Anyway, so what will I be reading tonight? Since I'm doing early weekly reads, tonight I will be continuing my clearing my wish list project. So I've selected a number of science fiction and fantasy novels that I will be going over this afternoon to decide whether I want to keep them in my wish list and possibly buy them, or just knock them out of my wish list and hopefully forget about them because they are so crappy. Or at least the previews are so crappy. But anyway, and then this weekend I'm going back to Bell Redemptions. First up, I'm going to try a work of history. I've avoided nonfiction and history for the most part this Bell Redemption, but I'm thinking I may be in the right frame of mind for some history. So I will be starting this next reading week with a Bell Redemption shot at Ravenna by Judith Herrin. This is the history of Ravenna. It's an Italian city that was for a while capital of the Roman Empire. And I had a go at it earlier this year as part of my name tag TBR. The name tag was a booktube tag that made the rounds late last year, about around this time. And basically participants would pick a number of books which the first letter of the title corresponded with that booktuber's name. So I decided to turn it into a TBR for the first 6 books of the year. And Ravenna was the last book, since I used my last name. And so my idea was not only to do the name tag TBR, but also to read no fiction in 2022. That did not go very well, in no small part because I had a few meltdowns the first weeks of 2022. So anyway, and that led to some bails. But anyway, so I'm really looking forward to having another go at Ravenna and hoping I have a lot more success with it this time than I did earlier this year. Wish me luck. And after I finish Ravenna, one way or another, I will have another go at The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. This is a story of a mother and son who are coming to terms with the death of the husband and father. One way the boy copes is by beginning to have conversations with inanimate objects, particularly a book, that at some point narrates the story of his parents' relationship. I have a bit of a complicated reading relationship with Ruth Ozeki. I read her earlier novel, A Tale for the Time Being, and I think at points I rate it higher than I really should. I mean, I did finish it and I liked it, but I didn't love it. I had some issues with it. But I've kind of wanted to have another go at it. And I wanted to have another go at this, or have a go at this, particularly when it won the Women's Prize this year. And so I read it in August as part of my back to school project. Did I? Or didn't I? I think no, I think I read this after that. Because I think originally I was going to read this for the back to school project, but then switched it out for Beloved, which I will get to eventually too. But I think I read it later in August, and or maybe it was earlier. I don't remember now. Anyway, but I liked what I read up until a scene where the boy's mother and father first meet. I thought that scene was incredibly manipulative, and I just really didn't like it, and it threw me out of the book. And I never quite found my way back in. But I'm hoping that this time around I will have a better success with it, but we shall see. Wish me luck. Anyway, so that's my plan for this next reading week. Hopefully, if anything happens, I'll pretty much pitch in for more bail redemptions because I've got quite a few. But anyway, so that's that. As far as BookTube videos go, obviously later on this evening, I will do a clearing my wish list for science fiction and fantasy. And then next week, there'll be some tag videos, some discussion videos. I do want to do another video focusing on classics because I've been thinking a lot about the classics lately and anything else that comes to mind. But yeah, so anyway, that's my plan. So until I see you later this afternoon, or evening, I should say, thank you, BookTube. Have a great afternoon and stay safe.